Lena was everything I had ever wanted: intelligent, charismatic, and breathtakingly beautiful. From the moment I met her, she had me under her spell. Her laughter was intoxicating, her touch electric, and the way she moved was like poetry in motion. We were the perfect couple, or so I thought. We shared an upscale apartment in the heart of the city, spent weekends wrapped up in each other, and made grand plans for a wedding that was supposed to be the beginning of forever. She had this way of making me feel like the only man in the world when we were together. Her lips would brush against mine in passing, fingers trailing over my skin as if she needed that constant connection. At night, she would curl against me, her body soft and warm, whispering things that made my blood run hot. I was lost in her world, and I never wanted to find my way out. But like all illusions, this one was bound to shatter. At first, the changes were subtle, small enough that I could convince myself I was imagining things. Lena had always been social, but lately her nights out with friends had become more frequent. I didn't mind at first. She deserved to have fun. But something about the way she carried herself when she left made me uneasy. "I'll be home late tonight, babe. Don't wait up," she whispered one evening, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek as she adjusted the strap of her black dress. The dress was one of my favorites, tight in all the right places, teasing enough to drive me crazy. "Where are you going?" I asked casually, watching as she slipped on her heels. "Just a girls' night. Wine and gossip," she replied smoothly, flashing that perfect smile. I smiled back, but something gnawed at me. Maybe it was the way her hands lingered just a second too long on her perfume bottle, as if she wanted to be absolutely irresistible. Or maybe it was the way her phone had started spending more and more time face down on the counter, as if she didn't want me to see something. I shook the thought away. I trusted her. Or at least, I wanted to. That night I barely slept. My mind kept playing tricks on me, imagining her laughing, whispering, slipping into someone else's arms. It was irrational, I told myself. Lena loved me. But the next morning when she finally came home, my gut told me something was off. She smelled different. Not bad, not foreign, just different. Like expensive cologne that wasn't hers, or mine. She walked in, stretching her arms above her head, looking effortlessly beautiful even in last night's clothes. "You're awake," she said, feigning surprise. I studied her for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. Lena smiled, crossing the room and slipping onto the couch beside me. She curled up, resting her head against my shoulder like she always did. Her body was warm, familiar. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. I ran my fingers down her arm, feeling her shiver under my touch. "Good night?" I asked, keeping my voice even. She hummed, nodding. "Yeah. Nothing too crazy." Nothing too crazy. The words felt rehearsed. She tilted her head up, pressing a slow kiss to my jaw, her lips soft, inviting. I wanted to lose myself in her, to let go of the nagging doubt, but something held me back. It was in the way she hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, before kissing me again, as if she were second-guessing it. Lena's distance became more noticeable over the next few weeks. She still kissed me, still touched me, but something was missing. A fire that used to be there, a hunger in the way she pulled me closer. She was still affectionate, but sometimes it felt empty, like she was going through the motions. And then there were the nights when she was on her phone, fingers moving fast over the screen before she turned it over as if it meant nothing. "Who were you talking to?" I asked one evening, keeping my tone light. She glanced up, eyes unreadable. "Just Mia," she said easily, naming one of her best friends. I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. Lena had never hidden things from me before. She had never hesitated when I pulled her close. And yet, lately, I felt like I was chasing a version of her that was slipping through my fingers. That night, as she lay sleeping beside me, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft rise and fall of her breath. Was I imagining it? Was I being paranoid? Or was my fiancé keeping a secret that she never wanted me to find out? Lena stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the strap of her dress, the fabric hugging her curves in a way that made my pulse quicken. Her perfume, a scent she only wore for special occasions, lingered in the air, filling the room with a dizzying sweetness. "Girls' night?" I asked, leaning against the doorway, watching her apply a final touch of lipstick. She nodded without meeting my eyes. "Yeah, just a relaxed evening. Wine, movies, the usual." I studied her reflection, searching for something, anything, that would reassure me. But something in her body language felt off. The way she avoided my gaze, the slight hesitation in her voice. "You look beautiful," I said, testing her reaction. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, babe." Then, before I could say anything else, she grabbed her clutch and pressed a quick kiss to my cheek. "Don't wait up." And just like that, she was gone. I tried to distract myself. I really did. I poured myself a drink, turned on the TV, scrolled through my phone, but nothing could shake the gnawing feeling in my chest. Lena had gone out with her friends dozens of times before, so why did tonight feel different? Maybe it was the way she got ready, too perfect, too polished for a casual girls' night. Or maybe it was the way her phone never left her side anymore, as if she was guarding it. I sighed, rubbing a hand over my face. I was overthinking. That's what I told myself. But deep down, I knew better. Something wasn't right, and I needed to find out what. The thought hit me suddenly, like a spark catching fire. I could sit here, drowning in my own suspicions, or I could go see for myself. Before I could second-guess it, I grabbed my keys and headed out the door. I didn't even know exactly where she was, but I had a hunch. Lena and her friends had a favorite spot, a rooftop bar on the other side of town. If she was really with them, I would see for myself. If not, then I would have my answer. As I drove, my mind raced with possibilities. What if she really was just with her friends? What if I was about to make a fool of myself? But what if she wasn't? The thought made my grip tighten around the wheel. The bar was crowded, dimly lit with warm amber lights and the hum of conversation filling the air. My heart pounded as I scanned the room, searching. Then I saw her. Not with her friends, not sitting in a cozy booth sipping wine with the women she had claimed to be with, but at the bar, leaning into a man whose hand rested casually on her thigh. Lena threw her head back, laughing at something he said, her fingers trailing along the rim of her glass. Her body language was different, looser, more open than it ever was with me these days. A slow burn of anger mixed with disbelief surged through me. This wasn't just innocent flirting. This was something deeper, something intentional. I took a step closer, my blood roaring in my ears. And then it happened. The man leaned in, murmuring something in her ear. Lena smirked, tilting her head toward him, and with a soft chuckle she said the words that would haunt me forever. "Don't worry. He'll never find out." She had no idea I was standing right behind her. My entire world stopped. She laughed again, lifting her drink to her lips, completely unaware that her illusion of secrecy had just crumbled. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. She had lied. She had betrayed me. And she thought I was too blind to ever see it. Time slowed. The background noise of the bar, the music, the clinking of glasses, the hum of conversations faded into nothing. Lena was mid-laugh when she turned, and the moment her eyes locked onto mine, the color drained from her face. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. The man beside her, still oblivious, smirked and leaned in closer, his fingers grazing the inside of her thigh. And then he noticed me too. The tension in the air became suffocating. The people around us, sensing the sudden shift, quieted. Some turned to watch, their curiosity piqued by the storm that was about to unfold. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just stared at her, and in that moment, she knew. She knew she was caught. "Liam," she breathed, her voice unsteady. "This isn't what it looks like." I let out a slow, humorless laugh. "Isn't it?" She scrambled to her feet, stepping away from the man beside her as if that could erase what I had just seen. It's just a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. I repeated the word in my head, rolling it around like bitter poison on my tongue. "You told him I'd never find out," I said, my voice eerily calm. "So explain to me exactly what I misunderstood." She swallowed hard, glancing around the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. "Please, let's not do this here," she whispered, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. Her touch, once something I craved, now made my skin crawl. "Lena," I said, my tone even, controlled. "Tell me the truth." A nervous cough broke the silence. Mia, one of Lena's closest friends, stepped forward, arms crossed over her chest. "Come on, Liam, you're blowing this out of proportion." I turned my gaze to her. "Am I?" Mia rolled her eyes. "It's just some harmless fun. A little flirting doesn't mean anything." The man Lena had been entertaining, the one who had his hands all over her, let out a chuckle, sipping his drink like he was watching a show. "Yeah, dude, relax." I ignored him. He wasn't my concern. I focused on Lena, who was still struggling to find her voice. "Tell me the truth," I repeated, slower this time. "How long has this been going on?" Lena's breathing was uneven now. Her hands trembled slightly as she tucked her hair behind her ear, a nervous habit I had seen 100 times before. "Liam, please," she murmured. "Can we just go somewhere private and talk?" I tilted my head. "Why? So you can control the narrative? So you can twist the truth into something easier for me to swallow?" She flinched. Her silence was the loudest confession of all. The man beside her finally caught on to the fact that the situation wasn't in his favor. He leaned back, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, man, I didn't know she had a boyfriend." I shifted my attention to him, my voice sharp as a blade. "Fiancé?" His smirk faltered. "Shit." Lena turned to glare at him, panic flaring in her eyes. "You're not helping," she hissed. Oh, now she was worried about damage control. The weight of betrayal pressed heavy against my chest, but I refused to let it break me. I had walked into this place thinking I'd find peace of mind, that I'd confirm my paranoia was nothing but insecurities. Instead, I had found proof that the woman I was about to marry had been playing me for a fool. I took one last look at her, the woman I had once believed was my future, and I made my choice. The weight of betrayal pressed against my chest like a slow-burning fire. My pulse pounded in my ears, but my face remained cold, unreadable. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Lena stood before me, eyes wide, lips parted as if she were scrambling for an excuse. A lie. Something that would make this all disappear. But nothing she could say would erase what had already been done. I took a slow step forward, my gaze locking onto hers. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating. Around us, the bar had fallen into an awkward silence. People were watching, whispering. The man she had been draped over, the one who had touched her like she was his, shifted uncomfortably beside her. Finally, I spoke. "It's over." Just 2 words. 2 simple words, but they cut through the air like a blade. Lena flinched. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, Liam, please." Before I could step back, she reached for me. Her fingers curled around my wrist, nails pressing into my skin as if she could hold me in place by sheer force alone. "Don't do this," she begged, her voice shaky. Please, just listen to me. I stared at her, expression blank. Listen to what, Lena? I said, my voice dangerously calm. More lies? It's not what it looks like, she rushed out, desperation lacing her words. He's just a friend. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. I let out a slow, humorless chuckle. That's the best you've got? Her grip tightened. I made a mistake, okay? How long? I interrupted, my voice firm. She swallowed. Liam. How long? Lena's lips trembled. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, someone else did. Dude, just let her explain, one of her friends, Mia, said, rolling her eyes. It's not like she doesn't love you. I turned my gaze to her. Oh? And how would you know? Mia scoffed. Because we know her, Liam. You're being dramatic. Dramatic, I repeated, nodding slowly. Right. So tell me, Mia, how long have you been covering for her? Mia's face twitched, and then the man beside Lena made the mistake of opening his mouth. Come on, man, he muttered, looking bored. It's not like you weren't going to find out eventually. Lena sucked in a sharp breath. Her head snapped toward him, her eyes filled with panic. Shut up, she hissed under her breath. But it was too late. My jaw clenched. Eventually? The man had the audacity to smirk. I mean, it's been a few months. She said you'd never find out, but I told her it was risky. A few months. The words settled in like a lead weight in my stomach. All this time, the late nights, the whispered phone calls, the careful lies disguised as harmless excuses. I had been played, and everyone in this room had known. Lena's face was pale now, her entire body trembling. Liam, please, she whispered. I stepped back, shaking my head. Don't! Lena was still reaching for me, still trying to salvage what little she could, but it was useless. You made your choice, I said, voice eerily quiet. Now live with it. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling over onto her flushed cheeks. I love you, she whispered, voice breaking. I stared at her for a long moment. Then, finally, I spoke. No, you don't, Lena gasped softly. I do, Liam, I swear, if you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. Silence. She had no response to that. And I was done waiting for one. Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked away. I could hear Lena's sobs behind me, the frantic shuffle of her heels as if she wanted to chase after me, but she didn't. She couldn't. I pushed through the doors, stepping out into the cold night air. My lungs burned, my heart pounded, but I didn't stop moving. I wasn't angry anymore, I wasn't hurt. I was free, and that was the greatest revenge of all. The apartment felt different that night. Quieter. Emptier. Lena hadn't come home yet. Maybe she knew I would be gone by the time she did. Maybe she was too much of a coward to face me again. I stood in our bedroom, looking around at the remnants of a life I had once believed in. The framed photos, the neatly folded blankets, the scent of her perfume still lingering in the air. It was all a lie. I took only what was mine: clothes, my laptop, important documents. Everything else? I left it behind. The furniture, the dishes, the gifts we had exchanged over the years. They meant nothing to me anymore. But before I walked out for the last time, I left one final message. On the bed, I placed my engagement ring. Next to it, a handwritten note. You made your choice. Now live with it. No anger, no explanations, just the truth. And with that, I walked out the door and never looked back. But I wasn't done yet. Lena hadn't just betrayed me. She had made me look like a fool. And I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. She had spent months lying to me, sneaking around, laughing with her friends at how oblivious I was. So I made sure everyone knew the truth. I sent the screenshots, The messages I had found, the evidence of her months-long affair. First, to her family, then to our mutual friends, then finally, to the people she valued the most, the ones whose opinions she cared about more than anything. And just like that, the perfect image she had built for herself shattered. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. Her friends, at least the ones who hadn't been covering for her, turned their backs on her. The ones who had defended her, they weren't so quick to stand by her when they realized everyone else knew the truth. Her family was furious. Her work colleagues whispered. Her social circle crumbled. The woman who had always been the center of attention, who thrived on admiration, was suddenly a pariah. And I was finally free. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. No more lies, no more doubts, no more pretending everything was okay. I moved into my own place, a space that was entirely mine, untouched by memories of her. I went out, reconnected with old friends, focused on my work, and slowly I started to rebuild. And the most surprising thing, I didn't miss her. Not the way I thought I would, because the woman I had loved never really existed. She had been an illusion, a mask that had finally slipped, and I had no interest in chasing ghosts. It started with a missed call, then another, then the messages. Liam, please, can we talk? I need to explain. I miss you. I love you. Please don't shut me out like this. Then when I didn't respond, you're being so cruel. You're not even willing to listen? You're acting like I never meant anything to you. And finally, when the desperation turned to bitterness, fine. If you want to act like I never existed, go ahead. But don't forget, I was the best thing that ever happened to you. I stared at my screen for a moment. Then, without hesitation, I blocked her number. I was done. She had been the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing that ever happened to me was the moment I walked away. And I never planned to look back. Would she regret it? Probably. Would she try to find a way back into my life? Maybe. But it didn't matter anymore. Because for the first time in a long time, I was free.